You lied to us about uniting the party. I'm still a Labour Party member, and you've expelled and witch hunted.
From the party of stability to causing earthquakes, from the party of business to a slapdown from the IMF.
Angela Rayner is finally gone. It says everything about Keir Starmer's weak leadership that he had to wait for a report before acting.
The £5 billion bombshell, Starmer's crossroads moment. Right, before we dive into this absolute political earthquake that's shaking Westminster to its foundations, smash that subscribe button, because what you're about to hear will fundamentally change how you view Labour's economic strategy and the Conservative fight back that's brewing. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single revelation in this bombshell analysis. The corridors of power are practically vibrating with tension today as we witness what might be the most consequential political moment of Keir Starmer's premiership. Angela Rayner's departure has created a seismic shift that's sending shockwaves through both the business community and the trade union movement. And frankly, the implications are staggering. We're not just talking about a simple cabinet reshuffle here. We're witnessing the potential dismantling of what the Conservatives are branding as nothing short of economic warfare against British enterprise. Kemi Badenoch has emerged from the Conservative benches with a political equivalent of a sledgehammer, demanding that Starmer use this moment to kill off what she's characterizing as a £5 billion wrecking ball aimed squarely at the heart of British business. The sheer audacity of her intervention is breathtaking, but the substance behind it is what should have every political observer sitting up and taking notice. This isn't mere opposition grandstanding. This is a calculated assault on Labour's fundamental economic philosophy. The numbers are absolutely jaw-dropping when you break them down. £5 billion. That's not pocket change. That's the kind of figure that can make or break entire sectors of the British economy. When Badenoch throws around numbers like that, backed by government analysis no less, she's not just making political points. She's essentially arguing that Labour's employment rights revolution represents an existential threat to British competitiveness. The former Deputy Prime Minister, according to Conservative calculations, has essentially declared war on private enterprise, and the casualties are mounting before the first shot has even been properly fired. But here's where it gets particularly fascinating from a political chess perspective. The Conservatives are positioning this as Starmer's great reset moment. They're essentially handing him a golden opportunity to distance himself from what they characterize as Rayner's union-backed extremism. It's a masterful bit of political maneuvering because it forces Starmer into an impossible position. Does he abandon policies that are fundamental to Labour's identity, or does he double down and risk the economic chaos that his opponents are predicting? If you're finding this analysis as gripping as I am, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that notification bell, because we're only scratching the surface of this political drama. The trade union dimension adds another layer of complexity that's absolutely crucial to understanding the broader implications. £35 million in union contributions since Starmer became leader. That's not just financial support, that's a political debt that creates obligations and expectations. When Badenoch highlights these figures, she's not just talking about money. She's talking about influence, about who really controls Labour's economic agenda, and about whether the Labour government can ever truly be independent from union demands. Andrew Griffith's characterization of Rayner's package as an unemployment bill is particularly savage because it strikes at the heart of Labour's economic credibility. The suggestion that policies designed to protect workers will actually destroy jobs is the kind of ideological battleground that defines modern British politics. It's a fundamental disagreement between those who believe that stronger worker protections create a more productive economy and those who argue that regulatory burden stifles growth and innovation. The timing of this Conservative offensive is absolutely critical. They are striking at a moment when Labour is vulnerable, when the government appears to be in disarray, and when economic pressures are mounting from multiple directions. It's classic opposition tactics, but executed with a precision that suggests serious strategic thinking behind the scenes. They are not just opposing individual policies. They are attempting to frame the entire Labour project as fundamentally hostile to economic growth. John Longworth's intervention from the Independent Business Network adds credibility to the Conservative argument because it comes from someone who can claim to speak for business interests rather than pure political opposition. When he characterizes Rayner as clearly the darling of the trade union bosses and calls her policies draconian laws regarding union rights, he's providing the kind of business community validation that give political arguments real bite. The description of a war on business, economic development, and wealth creation is particularly striking because it frames the debate in almost existential terms. This isn't just about employment law. It's about the fundamental direction of the British economy and whether the country will prioritize worker protections or business flexibility in an increasingly competitive global environment. Don't forget to subscribe if you're enjoying this deep dive into the political machinations that are reshaping British politics as we speak. But here's where Labour's response becomes absolutely fascinating from a strategic perspective. Their spokesperson's defense is revealing because it shows exactly how they want to frame this battle. They are not backing down, they are doubling down. The phrase historic legislation is carefully chosen because it positions Labour as a progressive force pushing Britain forward while painting the Conservatives as defenders of an outdated status quo. The specific policies mentioned in Labour's defence, ending abusive zero-hour contracts, stopping fire and rehire practices, ensuring fair wages, and increasing parental leave, are deliberately chosen because they poll well with the public. It's a classic case of both sides trying to fight this battle on the terrain that's most favourable to their position. The Conservatives want to talk about economic costs and business confidence, while Labour wants to focus on worker protection and fairness. Labour's counterattack on Conservative economic management is equally strategic. By pointing to business confidence figures and claiming that Tory governance left companies struggling and jobs endangered, they're trying to flip the narrative completely. They're essentially arguing that it was Conservative policies that created economic instability, not Labour's proposed reforms. The claim about business confidence being at a 9-year high under Labour is particularly interesting because, if true, it undermines the entire Conservative argument about business hostility to the government's agenda. It suggests that perhaps the business community is more nuanced in its views than the Conservative characterization would suggest, or alternatively, that different sectors and different types of businesses have very different perspectives on Labour's policies. The phrase collaborating with companies and employees to increase our economy and generate more well-paid British jobs is crafted to sound inclusive and balanced, positioning Labour as a party that can work with both business and Labour to create win-win solutions. It's a direct challenge to the Conservative framing of Labour as anti-business, suggesting instead that they represent a more sophisticated approach to economic management. Make sure you're subscribed because the implications of this political battle extend far beyond just employment law and could reshape the entire landscape of British economic policy. What makes this moment particularly crucial is that it represents a fundamental test of Starmer's political leadership and his ability to manage the competing pressures within his own party and the broader political environment. The Conservative strategy is clearly designed to create maximum pressure on him personally, to force him to choose between appeasing business concerns and maintaining party unity. The suggestion that this represents Labour's revival moment if they have any chance of attaining the critical growth agenda is particularly clever because it implies that Labour's current trajectory is leading toward failure. It's psychological pressure designed to create doubt and uncertainty within Labour ranks about whether their current approach is sustainable. The broader implications for British economic policy are profound. If the Conservatives are successful in framing this as a choice between worker protections and economic growth, it could fundamentally reshape how future governments approach employment law. It could establish a precedent where any attempt to strengthen worker rights is automatically characterized as anti-business and economically destructive. Alternatively, if Labour successfully defends their position and demonstrates that stronger worker protections can coexist with economic growth, it could pave the way for a new model of economic management that prioritizes both business success and worker welfare. The stakes couldn't be higher for both sides. The international dimension is also worth considering. Britain is competing in a global economy where different countries have made different choices about the balance between worker protections and business flexibility. The outcome of this debate could influence Britain's competitive position and its ability to attract investment and talent from around the world. If you're not already subscribed, now is the time because this story is developing rapidly and the political ramifications will be felt for months or even years to come. The personal dimension for Starmer is equally significant. This represents a test of whether he can establish himself as a leader who is independent from the various factions within his party, or whether he will be seen as someone who is beholden to union interests. His handling of this moment could define his entire premiership and determine whether Labour can present itself as a credible governing party that can manage the competing demands of modern British politics. The Conservative strategy of framing this as Starmer's opportunity to distance himself from Rayner's policies is particularly astute because it recognises the personal and political dynamics within Labour. By positioning Rayner's departure as a liberation rather than a loss, they are trying to give Starmer political cover for abandoning policies that he might privately have concerns about. The business community's response will be crucial in determining the success of either side's strategy. If major business leaders begin publicly supporting conservative position, it could create momentum for Labour to moderate their approach. Conversely, if businesses begin expressing support for Labour's reforms, it could undermine the conservative argument entirely. The trade union response will be equally important. If unions interpret any Labour moderation as a betrayal of fundamental principles, it could create internal party tensions that weaken Starmer's position. The £35 million in union contributions that Badenoch highlighted represents not just financial support, but political expectations that cannot easily be ignored. The timing of this confrontation, coming at a moment when the government is dealing with multiple economic pressures, adds another layer of complexity. If economic conditions worsen, it will strengthen the conservative argument that Labour's policies are contributing to instability. If conditions improve, it will bolster Labour's claim that their approach is working. Remember to hit that subscribe button because we'll be tracking every development in this crucial political battle that could determine the direction of British economic policy for a generation. The media's role in framing this debate will be absolutely critical. How different outlets choose to present the competing arguments will influence public opinion and potentially sway the political calculations of both parties. The Conservatives' success in getting their framing of job-destroying and unemployment bill into the discourse is already shaping how this debate is being conducted. Labour's challenge is to present a counter-narrative that's equally compelling and that connects with public concerns about economic security and fairness. Their emphasis on ending abusive practices and ensuring fair wages is designed to tap into public sentiment about economic justice, but they need to demonstrate that these goals can be achieved without the economic costs that their opponents are predicting. The international comparisons will become increasingly important as both sides look for evidence to support their positions. Countries with strong worker protections that maintain economic competitiveness will be held up by Labour as proof that their approach can work. Countries where business-friendly policies have delivered strong growth will be cited by Conservatives as evidence for their position. The generational dimension is also worth considering. Younger voters who have experienced economic insecurity and precarious employment may be more supportive of Labour's approach, while older voters who have benefited from economic stability may be more concerned about policies that could disrupt established business practices. The regional implications could be significant as well. Different parts of the country with different economic structures and different relationships between business and Labour may respond differently to these competing visions. Labour's challenge is to craft policies that work across the diverse landscape of modern British capitalism. This moment represents a fundamental choice about the kind of economy Britain wants to be. Do we prioritise flexibility and competitiveness, even if it means accepting higher levels of economic insecurity for workers? Or do we believe that stronger protections can coexist with economic dynamism and that a more secure workforce is ultimately more productive? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell because this is exactly the kind of crucial political moment that will define British politics for years to come. The personal stakes for the key figures involved couldn't be higher. For Starmer, this is a test of his leadership and his ability to manage competing pressures. For Badenoch, this is an opportunity to establish herself as an effective opposition leader who can land significant political blows. For the broader political landscape, this represents a moment when fundamental questions about economic philosophy are being debated in real time with real consequences. The outcome of this confrontation will send signals about the balance of power between different interest groups in British society. If business interests prove more influential, it could embolden other sectors to challenge government policies. If trade union positions hold, it could strengthen Labour's voice in future policy debates. The constitutional implications are also worth considering. This debate touches on fundamental questions about the role of government in regulating the economy and the relationship between political parties and their financial supporters. The Conservative highlighting of union contributions to Labour raises questions about influence and independence that apply to all parties and all funding sources. The electoral implications could be profound. How this issue plays out could influence voter perceptions of both parties' economic competence and their commitment to different constituency groups. Labour needs to demonstrate that they can be trusted with the economy, while Conservatives need to show that they have moved beyond the economic management failures that contributed to their electoral defeat. The policy implications extend far beyond employment law. How this debate is resolved could influence approaches to taxation, regulation, public spending, and trade policy. It's a moment when competing visions of the state's role in the economy are being tested against political and economic reality. In conclusion, what we're witnessing isn't just a political spat over employment legislation. This is a fundamental battle for the soul of British economic policy, a moment when competing visions of capitalism are being stress-tested against the harsh realities of governing in a complex global economy. The choices made in the coming weeks and months will reverberate through British politics for years to come, shaping not just policy outcomes but the entire framework within which future economic debates are conducted. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the outcome remains tantalizingly uncertain. If you found this analysis as compelling as a political drama it dissects, make sure you're subscribed to UK Connors for more incisive coverage of the political earthquakes reshaping our nation. Hit that notification bell, because in British politics, the next bombshell is always just around the corner.